Welcome to Buffalo Pregame, your source for live Buffalo football discussion, news, analysis, opinions, and more. Presented by ASM Publications and Bills Digest.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Buffalo Pregame. I am your host, Alex Brasky, here for Bills Digest and ASM Publications. On today's show, James Cook is in the kitchen for the extended future. Also, injuries continue to pile up on the Bills roster at wide receiver, and an update on Dion Dawkins. Each week on Buffalo Pregame, I'll provide updates on the NFL, NHL, and more via daily articles, podcast videos, and more. Please subscribe to Buffalo Pregame with Alex Brasky on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, along with Buffalo Pregame with Alex Brasky on Substack, both of which are free of charge. All right, let's get into it. The James Cook contract saga is officially over. James Cook re-signs with the Bills. A 4-year lucrative contract extension will keep him with the team through the 2029 season. It's worth an average annual value of $12 million per season. So not quite the $15 million that he was seeking entering this entire offseason discourse, but $1 million more than we saw Rams running back Kyren Williams sign for in terms of average annual value last week. So Cook becomes the 6th highest paid running back in terms of AAV throughout the NFL. He also got $30 million guaranteed within this deal, which is the 3rd most among current running back contracts. And added contract details were released by Spotrac, who I have found out is blocked friend of the show, Greg Thompson. Could there be a little bit of jealousy brewing there between Spotrac and Thompson, two of the contractual financial monetary titans on the NFL's media sphere? But Cook will get $15 million guaranteed at signing, 10 or so million more next February or March. So practically it's a 3-year, $30 million deal. The Bills also freed up $2.2 million in cap space for the 2025 season per the extension, which is significantly important because the Bills are in quite the cap hell right now. And with moves coming down the pike, practice squad, and perhaps some signings coming after final cutdowns are made, you need a little bit of room to work with under the salary cap. So creating that $2.2 million, a big deal for the Bills, and a team-friendly cap hit of $5.8 million in 2026 for Cook as well. So the team will be able to, or at least put itself in position to dig itself out of this current cap situation, cap conundrum that it currently finds itself in after extending 5 of its cornerstone players this offseason. And the 2022 draft class has proven to be one of Brandon Beane's, if not the best Brandon Beane draft class, probably the best thus far. I think this year's may have something to say about that in the future, and I tweeted that out, I think it was last week. But if you look at that 2022 draft class, Kyer Elam in the 1st round, and then you take Cook in the 2nd round, Terrell Bernard in the 3rd round, Khalil Shakir in the 4th round, and then Christian Benford in the 6th round. And all of those players now re-signed through the 2029 season. So the Bills really gearing up for this next 4-year run of Josh Allen, Sean McDermott and company, and really hoping that bringing these players back and locking them up for the extended future will allow them to continue along the trajectory that they've been on for the past several seasons. So that 22 draft class has proven to be really, really good, with the exception, of course, of Kyer Elam. And I guess I was short of calling it the best draft class of Brandon Beane's tenure yesterday, just due to the fact that Kyer Elam, I think, represents kind of a zero in that situation. If you remember back to your college or high school days, if you got a 0 in a course, it significantly brings down your overall average. And I think that was the case with Brandon Beane and Kyer Elam, in my opinion. I just think that that selection significantly diminished the value of that draft class. But at the same time, if you look at the remainder of the draft class. And if you throw in 5th-round pick Matt Ariza in there, if the unfounded accusations, sexual assault allegations that he faced while he was a member of the Bills never came to pass, that draft class would look even better, as he seems to have caught on with the Kansas City Chiefs and seems to be doing a solid job there. So that 2022 draft class just mighty impressive. And James Cook, the latest feather in Brandon Beane's cap when it comes to that class. But as far as Cook is concerned, I didn't think this was going to get done before the regular season. I thought that he would play out the season in a contract year and see what he could get from the team or perhaps another team come the offseason. So he certainly proved me wrong in that respect. And I also had heard rumblings that the team and Cook were about $4 to $5 million apart in negotiations. And I think that's probably where it started at the beginning of the offseason. But as time progressed, as the two sides continued to work together, and you saw it on Hard Knocks last night with Cook remaining a good soldier, continuing to go to meetings, continuing to participate in walkthroughs with his team. I think as time wore on, the two sides became a little bit more accepting to meeting in the middle. And that's exactly what happened with this deal. You give Cook $12 million. It's not the 15 that he wanted per season, but you also give him the guaranteed money. And I think that's really what it came down to for Cook. I think he took the guaranteed money over the monetary value that he wanted on a average annual value basis. So I think setting up his family, as Josh Allen mentioned, for kind of generational wealth is exactly what Cook was looking to do. And you heard him speak during the press conference who he was most happy for, what he was most happy about with signing this new contract. And it was indeed, he was happy for his family. And family seems to mean everything to Cook. You look at Dalvin Cook, his brother, commenting on his contract status throughout the offseason. He's been a big supporter of his. And although it can become a little bit frustrating at times for a fan, seeing a family member stick up for another publicly in a situation is kind of tension-filled as this. I think tenuous is the right word. I just blanked on that, though. But as tension-filled as this was, I think that fan frustration can start to creep up when you see Dalvin Cook getting involved and trying to push on the conversation. But I think in this situation, Cook gets what he wants. And at the end of the day, Cook played his cards right. He sits out in the middle of training camp. So I'll give you the entire rundown. He is there for the mandatory portion of the offseason program after sitting out the voluntary portion. No problem entering training camp. Midway through training camp, he begins this 9-day hold-in that spans 4 practices, 1 preseason game, and then he shows back up on Tuesday. Sean McDermott says they've had good conversations, and then on Wednesday, of course, he signs the deal. So when you look at this saga in its totality, it appears as if James Cook has indeed played his cards right over the past several months, and he gets somewhere close to the asking price that he put out there to start the offseason. So it was a bit odd the way that he handled it all, and it drew some criticism from plenty throughout the media sphere and fans alike, including myself. But when you look at how it all worked out, it appears as if he pretty much got what he wanted. Like I said, did not get the exact money that he wanted, but he sets himself up for the next 3 to 4 years with this team. And really, the things that I don't think many people take into account when it comes to players pursuing a new contract, a lot of people think it's just about money for them, but these players and these agents are smarter than you think. And this is a better contract with guaranteed money, and it's in a good situation, first and foremost, with a good quarterback, a good offensive line, led well by Sean McDermott and his unit. Brandon Beane at the top of the chain as well has proven to be an effective general manager. So, and it's also somewhere where he's comfortable. He mentioned in his press conference how this is a place where he and his teammates really vibe together and have really grown together. And I think someone who, as soft-spoken and not really outgoing as James Cook is, I think that's another important element to a player like him, being in a comfortable situation, knowing it's somewhere where he can flourish with the former or the reigning MVP under center, a good offensive line in front of him, and an offense that has really structured itself to his strengths. You've heard Jerry Ostrowski of the Overreaction Pod talk about how this offensive line really blocks to suit James Cook's ability. And I think that rings true. I'm not sure that they've really sold out in that respect. And it's all about James Cook. At the end of the day, it's really about Josh Allen. But in the running game, I think there's certain things you need to do to structure yourself to best suit the running back. And that's exactly what the Bills have done with James Cook up front. And just all those things matter. Like I said, it's not just about the money, especially for a running back. It's about who's under center. It's about that offensive line and much, much more. And all of that at this point is a perfect situation for James Cook. And it seems like the two sides are as happy as clams to have worked out this 4-year pact moving forward. And we heard from Cook after practice, which you saw video from Dan Fates of Buffalo Plus, a jovial James Cook at practice. And you don't see much expression from Cook typically on the practice field, pretty much poker faced in all situations, but he couldn't help but smile from ear to ear, boy, today. And I'll tell you, some of the clips that came out, it was so good to see. And I couldn't help myself smiling through the phone. You can see the clip that Dan Fates posted on his X account. It's really a collection of James Cook smiles. And I think we might have to save that one for one of his big performances coming up during the regular season and do a That Feeling When post on X. But yeah, it was just great to see how jovial Cook was at practice. And we heard from him after practice. And he said he felt like he handled things the right way. And it's tough to argue with him the way that things worked out. And he said, we paid now, so let's just play football. And I think that's what it's about for Cook. When you listen to him speak, I think, and we heard this from Emery Hunt on the podcast yesterday, another underrated aspect of this entire situation was Cook didn't want to enter the season kind of in unknown territory and not knowing what was coming down the pike and having to perform in a contract year, knowing that one injury could really impact his entire future. So I think that with all of that uncertainty and before the deal gets done, I think that is a motivating factor to kind of get things done before the season. And when Cook's thinking, how much am I going to get paid? Will I even be here next year? That all weighs on a player. And Cook felt he couldn't produce at his best without that certainty that his contract provides. And to be quite honest with you, I can't blame him because, as Emery mentioned yesterday, in any line of work, you want that certainty. If you have it hanging over your head that this might be your final season with this team, and if I don't perform to my utmost, am I going to get the contract that I desire? That can impact your performance on the field. So I think along with the self-preservation aspect of James Cook's 9-day, 4 practice, 1 preseason game hold-in, I think it was also a product of just wanting that certainty and wanting that insurance that if things don't go as well as they did a year ago, and how could they, over 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. I don't expect he's going to score that many touchdowns again this season. So I think with that uncertainty entering the season, James Cook just felt very uncomfortable, and having that certainty now moving forward with the team, I think really is a great thing for James Cook, the team, the fan base, and everybody involved with the Buffalo Bills. And James Cook, during his time at the podium today, he also lauded the support of his teammates and said that that was one of the reasons why he decided to hold in and really make things not as messy as they could have been throughout this hold-in. You've seen kind of what Micah Parsons has dealt with in Dallas, and that seems to be getting a little bit messy. You heard Jerry Jones' comments today, and I think James Cook wasn't willing to go to that length, and it was shown on Hard Knocks how he was sitting in meetings. He was going through walkthroughs with his team, and I think that was a product of the loyalty he has to his teammates, and he talked about that at the podium, how they've had his back throughout this entire situation, and he'd like to have their back as well. And I think what it comes down to for Cook is it's not just a selfish decision, as many Bills fans have kind of viewed it as over the past several months. I think it also comes down to the fact that his true desire is to win a Super Bowl with this team. And he mentioned as much during his time speaking to the Buffalo media. He's maintained that has been his goal throughout this process. So winning a Super Bowl, improving his game, both goals for James Cook moving forward. And I think with James Cook in tow, you undoubtedly have the best chance to win the Super Bowl. Now, could you win the Super Bowl without a running back of James Cook's caliber? Of course. But I don't think you can downplay what he means to this Bills offense. As he's developed throughout the course of his career, he's provided that consistency for this Bills offense. And you have Josh Allen, you have the big playability, you have the MVP level talent, but what you need to kind of pair that with is that consistent running game that can help you provide that consistency on a down-to-down basis. The passing game is all well and good, but without those consistent 4 or 5 yards whenever you need them from the running game, it can put a lot of pressure on a quarterback. And I think James Cook has taken some of that pressure off Josh Allen in recent years, and there's a clear correlation between James Cook's impact this past season and Josh Allen's ascension to an MVP level talent. So you have to keep that around. You have to keep that dynamic rolling, and it's good to see the two sides were able to meet in the middle. And Brandon Beane, Bills GM, also spoke before practice a bit after the deal was announced, and he said that he believes that the team views James Cook as a 3-down player, which was somewhat a point of contention throughout this whole process. Fans saying, how can you pay a running back this much money when he's not even playing 50% of the snaps? You can't trust him in pass rush scenarios. But he played under 50% of the snaps last year, and I think that may have been more by design rather than his incapabilities. I think the Bills like having a stable of 3 talented running backs, as they do right now. One of the best running back groups in the league with James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson. And I think that's an ideal scenario for the Bills. Beane basically said that it's a team decision why Cook is playing 50% of the snaps. Says he likes their stable of backs, likes to keep them fresh, and they've been able to do that the past few years. You look at this group and what it's been able to accomplish, particularly last year when one goes out, another comes in, and you're not able to do that if you're force-feeding your top running back throughout the course of the season. Keeping those 3 involved throughout the course of the year allows you for a worst-case scenario if a James Cook goes down, if a Ray Davis is to be hurt for extended time, if Ty Johnson goes down, you can plug and play within those roles. And I feel that the Bills are very comfortable in their versatility within that running back room and really the overall efficacy of that running back room as well. And all 3 running backs are under contract now through the 2026 season, meaning this year and next year, the Bills will have one of the best backfields in the league, accompanied by one of the best quarterbacks in the league and one of the league's best offensive lines. So there are injuries at the wide receiver position and a lot of questions there. We'll get to that later. But when you look at the structure of this offense, it has the pieces in place to maintain its consistency over the next several years. I think next up in terms of contracts for the Bills will likely be offensive line. You look at center Connor McGovern. You look at former second-round pick guard Osiris Torrance. Torrance quickly becoming one of the most highly regarded guards in the league. He's certainly going to command a significant contract when he comes up past his rookie deal. And then McGovern is also critical, just that rapport that a center and quarterback build with one another. You saw it with Josh Allen and Mitch Morse at the start of Allen's career, and now you're seeing that start to develop with Allen and McGovern. And a great example is Peyton Manning and Jeff Saturday and what that duo was able to accomplish throughout years and years with the Indianapolis Colts. And I think that's an underrated aspect of offense in the NFL, the center's impact and the dynamic between a center and a quarterback. And what you've seen with McGovern and Allen develop over the past few years, I think is incredibly valuable. So I think you might be able to get McGovern at a lesser rate than you'll be able to get Torrance when it comes time. So maybe I would say more likely to resign with this team is McGovern. Maybe Torrance goes out there. He has the same agent as James Cook, and we saw the saga that played out this offseason. I'm not sure Brandon Beane is going to be willing to do that for an offensive guard, but it'll be interesting to see if these two can be kept in Buffalo with the contracts they've doled out recently, because although McGovern isn't a drafted player, Torrance is. The Bills' strategy is draft, develop, and re-sign, and you've seen that work out with 5 players recently this offseason with Greg Rousseau, Khalil Shakir, James Cook, Terrell Bernard, and Christian Benford. I think I got the number wrong earlier or in my article. I think I said 5 from the 2022 draft class, but of course it's 4 and then Rousseau, but 5 total this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep McGovern, Torrance, and anybody else coming along here. But at the same time, they're really playing out Josh Allen's prime with these next 4 years, and James Cook being kept around, I think, is a really, really big deal. So let's see. Anything else on this that I have in my notes? Yes, perhaps the most captivating thing I saw from either side, Brandon Beane or James Cook, during their time talking with the media today. Cook was asked if he was ever bothered by the criticism that was sent his way during this whole process, and there was plenty. At first, I think everyone was kind of waiting to see what happened, but as time went along, fans and some media members alike, including myself somewhat, wanted to see James Cook out there and felt that he should be, and felt how he was handling the whole situation was very, very odd and perhaps detrimental to what he wanted to get done. But he said simply that people's outside opinions don't matter to him. They don't know what he's going through. And because of that, their opinions don't matter. And he just kind of moves forward. And that's kind of what I appreciate about James Cook most. He's just a kind of a steady as they go guy, never too high, never too low. And I felt what he said in my soul. You never know what people are going through. And from the outside looking in, truly, opinions don't matter. Of course, as media members, we have to do our job. We have to discuss. We have to give our opinions. But I can totally see it from James Cook's point of view, how he would go through this situation and not concern himself with the outside noise. So James Cook, 4 years, $48 million, really a 3-year, $30 million deal practically. That will keep him with the Bills through the 2029 season. And everybody will hopefully continue to eat within that offense with the Cook now back in the kitchen. So that's it for the James Cook discussion on this podcast. And John Robert chiming in here, as he typically does, makes me wonder, now that Cook is signed, will they pay Connor McGovern? And yes, we did discuss that, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think that's a key point of emphasis for Brandon Beane entering this upcoming off season. But let's close this episode out a little bit shorter of an episode than we've been going lately, with the great guests that we've had. Emery Hunt yesterday of CBS Sports. We had Eric Turner the morning after the Bills preseason game. We had Mike Bunt on post-game coverage, and we had Anthony Prohaska of Cover One on pregame coverage. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast on the audio side, follow along throughout the course of the season. Great guests, great analysis. We'll keep you up to date with the day-to-day grind, and please hit that like button on this YouTube post as well. That would really help. Please hit that like button. Take the time to go to the YouTube app. Just click like, and you can go back to on your merry way, watching or listening, however you are at this current time. But please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It would really, really make me very, very happy. So beyond the James Cook news, there were several updates from the practice field this morning, including left tackle Dion Dawkins, who missed practice after he left practice an hour early on Tuesday. It was unknown the nature of the injury on Tuesday. Elena Getzenberg of ESPN stopped and talked with or asked a question to Dawkins after Tuesday's practice, and Dawkins reportedly smirked and danced away. So if you were reading the tea leaves between that and his congratulatory post to James Cook this morning on Dawkins' X account, it doesn't seem to be a significant injury, and it was confirmed as such by Sean McDermott on WGR. Just said that Dawkins aggravated his back. The team is hopeful that rest will be able to allow him to get back to the practice field during a joint session with the Bears on Friday, and then obviously the preseason game coming up on Sunday. Sean McDermott has not said that the starters are playing in that game, but that joint practice will be key for starters to start to gain that rapport with Josh Allen under center. The Bears starters will play in this weekend's preseason matchup. We'll discuss that a little bit more on Friday or Saturday on a pregame pod, and then obviously Sunday morning. So relatively good news on Dawkins. It's not good that both of your starting tackles, Dawkins and Spencer Brown, have dealt with back injuries to begin the season. But at the same time, Brown back in the fold. Dawkins doesn't appear to be serious. So not much to see here unless it continues to linger or Dawkins is to sit out that joint practice on Friday. Elsewhere, the wide receiver room is back to being significantly banged up. Elijah Moore and Tyrell Shavers back on the mend with unknown injuries, and Curtis Samuel is still out within this wide receiver room. Moore and Shavers were hurt earlier in camp and missed time. Shavers starred in the preseason game against the New York Giants this past weekend, but another absence lessens his chance of making the roster. We've seen him deal with these nicks and knacks throughout the course of the last few years, and the more time he misses on task, the less of a chance he has to make this 53-man roster coming out of training camp. Elijah Moore as well. He was the offseason darling, but he's kind of disappeared from the fold, and this is his second injury now of training camp. Dealt with leg soreness earlier in training camp, missed a few days, and he hasn't really shown anything on the field, to be quite honest with you, throughout training camp. He and Josh Allen haven't connected with any level of consistency, and during the preseason game, he came up with a flat-out goose egg, despite Mitch Trubisky, I think, missing him on that opening drive. So their absences continue to make the room within that wide receiver room even more hazy than it was to start the offseason. And with Joshua Palmer also dealing with a few injuries this offseason, today he had his leg wrapped up pretty significantly as he went through practice. You could see a little bit of a hitch in his giddy up, but all reports from the practice field today from Thad Brown were that Palmer is really starting to develop that rapport with Josh Allen. So there is concern within this wide receiver room. Like I said, rapport that these players have been able to build with Josh Allen due to their comings and goings from the practice field. And Curtis Samuel may be nearing the end of the road with the Bills. Brandon Beane, the most camera-loving general manager in the NFL. He's never met a camera, never met a microphone that he will shy away from. He went on Pat McAfee's show today after going through like a 30-minute press conference with Bills media earlier in the days. He mentioned almost every Bills wide receiver worth their salt except Curtis Samuel, and was really highlighting how the wide receiver room is going through some injuries, but has had some positive production thus far during training camp and early in the preseason. No mention of Curtis Samuel. So not a great sign. Maybe we see Curtis Samuel start the season on injured reserve with a designation to return. I can't imagine a trade is going to materialize for Curtis Samuel at this point. If the general manager isn't out there on national television promoting his services, I can't imagine there's much market out there for Curtis Samuel. But elsewhere on the injury front, Tyler Bass still not practicing. I am really starting to wonder if he'll be ready week one for the Bills at this point as things continue to linger with his pelvic area soreness. You see Caden Davis is stuck around, and he could be set to kick for the team this weekend against the Chicago Bears. Other players not practicing today, Wednesday, included offensive lineman Tylen Grable, who sustained a concussion or at least is in the concussion protocol. Cedric Van Pran Granger, the offensive lineman, second year. He's been dealing with a calf, has really missed, I think, the entirety of training camp. Edge rusher Justin Hollins, I'm not sure about his injury. Cornerback Max Hairston with the knee. We discovered there was somewhat of a positive update on him from the preseason game. He's off the crutches. He's moving around, going through walkthroughs with the team. And then linebacker Kendrick Green left practice on Wednesday, but he did return to the practice field. So a depth linebacker, perhaps in line for a practice squad role, is all good. Positive injury news for the Bills. Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp, the team's expected starting safeties, both returned to team drills. I believe that was Purcell Capaccio. I may be getting that wrong. I apologize if I'm getting the credit wrong there, but I did see plenty from Sale today on X, so that's what's sticking in my mind. Bishop and Rapp missed the past week together. Bishop has missed a little bit more time, 6 out of the first 12 preseason practices Bishop had missed. Rapp missed about, I think, 3 to 4. Both of them missed this past weekend's preseason game against the New York Giants, but both appear close to be returning against the Bears in the joint practice in this preseason game. And Sean McDermott mentioned on Tuesday how critical it is for Cole Bishop to get back out there with his teammates, specifically Taylor Rapp, and kind of develop that Batman and Robin dynamic, as McDermott explained it to be, at the safety position. We know how critical of a position that is, and Cole Bishop has missed so much time in the preseason the past 2 years that he needs to get out there and start refining his chemistry with Taylor Rapp. Also, offensive lineman Alec Anderson and linebacker Shaq Thompson dealing with knee and hamstring injuries, respectively. Both of those two returned to practice and appeared limited per Joe Biscaglia. So that's the injury report from Wednesday's practice. Now, let's move on to a little bit of a recap of Hard Knocks before we get out of here. And before we do this, let's hit that like button, go to YouTube, open the app, hit the like button, Buffalo Pregame with Alex Brasky. Please subscribe to the channel. Also, the Substack account. We're coming out with 2 to 3 articles per day updating you on what's going on from the practice field. So you really don't have to go anywhere else but Buffalo Pregame to get your daily coverage. I understand that others can provide analysis and maybe a little bit more in-depth, like I said, analysis of the team. But when it comes to updating you what's going on the daily with the Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Pregame is the place to be. But Hard Knocks on Tuesday night, another vanilla episode, just how the Buffalo Bills likely want it. Not many not many high moments really on Hard Knocks. No drama still. And even before James Cook signed this new contract with the Bills, the way that they portrayed his hold-in throughout the course of training camp was about as mild-mannered as you would ever see. So it's becoming state-run media at this point, Hard Knocks. If you love the Buffalo Bills, you're going to love it. But if you're looking for any salaciousness, drama from the outside, a national perspective, you're just not going to get it. Buffalo Joe Andreessen really kicked off the episode as the feature and I think closed the episode, and Fatty Bierko as well. And you saw him deliver a big hit along the sideline on Ty Johnson during training camp. And I love the reaction from Ryan Vandermark after that play in support of his offensive teammate. I think Buffalo Joe knew he had the microphone on that day, knew the cameras were on him, and maybe gave a little bit too much gusto on that play. But fortunately, Ty Johnson didn't wind up with an injury. And Buffalo Joe, just a great story on Hard Knocks last night. Talked about dating back to his time going to Bills training camp with his family, meeting Takeo Spikes, and kind of where he's come from and where he is now. How he deals with some different types of things as his teammates. He doesn't have to leave during the bye week. During the offseason, he isn't worried about going back home. He can always get a home-cooked meal from his parents. He doesn't have to ship his car in and out. So Buffalo Joe continues to be a great story, and to see his development from fan to rookie tryout to steady contributor has just been amazing to watch. And another star of the show, wide receiver KJ Hamler, for the second straight week, he was really featured. His scooter, of course. He upgraded the scooter to, I think, the Scoot 3000 or something like that. Cost him about $4,000, as the one that he had in the previous week was more of a kid scooter, and he said he laid it down somewhere and couldn't find it. His teammates roasting him, saying that it was probably a kid who picked it up that it truly should have belonged to. So KJ Hamler is just a 1-out-of-1 personality. He really reminds you of Isaiah McKenzie of Bills, the Bills' former wide receiver, but Hamler kind of takes it to another level. He's so expressive and so witty with his commentary. It's funny to watch him on this Hard Knocks series. And then this episode got a little bit serious, got a little bit real with Sean McDermott's skin cancer portion, and talking about what he went through with his diagnosis years ago and how he tries to protect himself in practice. And I'm sure for many, it's interesting to see McDermott out there on hot days with long sleeves, pants on, but he's trying to protect himself, and that big hat as well. But he's trying to protect himself from that skin cancer chance of cropping back up. And I thought it was a very humanistic portion of the episode, and something that maybe Bills fans didn't know about Sean McDermott. And you also saw what I thought, I couldn't get a exact look at it, but John Murphy appeared to be in the Bills game day booth during the preseason game, and so good to see him back if that is indeed the case. He said when he stepped away from the booth that he would try to be involved in the game day call in some capacity, and to see him sitting what looked like 2 rows behind current broadcaster Chris Brown, who's mentioned him as a mentor of his throughout his transition to the team's play-by-play man. It was great to see Murph there. I never thought Murph was my favorite play-by-play guy, but I always liked listening to him in terms of pregame, postgame, and the opinions that he had, and just a great guy in Buffalo media lore. So good to see John Murphy, by my perspective, back in the booth on game days. And lastly, second to last note about Hard Knocks. Episode was dedicated to Nicole Fisher, the late wife of scout Brian Fisher, who passed away in July. I thought that was a really, really nice touch. And the Bills do a great job of kind of keeping it a familial atmosphere. And Brian Fisher, a Bay Area scout, someone who probably doesn't come to Buffalo quite that often, but they keep everyone under the Bills umbrella. And when someone's in need of some thoughts, some prayers, some loving, they seem to dole it out in the right way. And episode dedicated to Nicole Fisher, I really thought that was a great thing. And I'll leave you with this on this episode before we get out of here. Damar Hamlin, how can you not continue to root for this guy? I understand those may feel that he isn't what the roster needs at the safety position. They may feel that second-round pick Cole Bishop can come in here and deliver a little bit more than Damar Hamlin is capable of in terms of his ability. He has his shortcomings like any player, and everyone has the right to criticize his play, look for improvement, want to change at the position. That's all well and good. But the vitriol with which Damar Hamlin is treated on a regular basis on social media is just confounding to me. This is a player who cheated death and is now continuing to live out his dream while giving back to others. He does whatever he can to spread the word about AED, CPR. How can you not love this guy? You might not love his performance on the field, But how can you not love Damar Hamlin, the human being? And it seems like there's so many people on social media that are just disgraceful in the way that they treat somebody who should be an absolute fan favorite in Buffalo. And I understand when you kind of take on a life of your own, when you become as famous as Damar Hamlin has been, there's always going to be detractors. It's a polarizing person. Everybody becomes polarizing when they become famous. But as I said before, he cheated death. He came back, started for this team for a full year, and in my opinion, provided serviceable play at the safety position. How can you hate this guy? Seems to operate with a clear mind, appears at peace at this stage in his life. To be honest with you, Damar Hamlin is everything I wish I could be mentally. You've heard the term, maybe some of you in the past, mental midget. That may not be politically correct, actually. But that's where I find myself sometimes. And it seems like Damar Hamlin has completely seized his mentals and just everything that is going on throughout his mind at this course of his career. And he should be a widespread fan favorite. Get on the Damar Hamlin train. He could be your starter at safety week 1. But that's going to be it for today's show. A little bit longer than I planned to go, which always seems to be the case. When I'm solo, I like to go about 30 minutes. This is about 42 approaching. But please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Buffalo Pregame Substack, Buffalo Pregame YouTube, anywhere you get your audio podcasts. It would help me a great deal. And please, all of you who tune in on X or otherwise, start to tune in on YouTube a little bit and start to get the following going there. I'm surprised we even got 300 people to watch live tonight with the New Heights podcast going on now with Taylor Swift. But I'm very appreciative to everybody who tuned in. Please like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.